All right, welcome to my presentation on digital business simulation games, a research proposal exploring the efficacy and engagement across age and experience levels for corporate learning. This is presented by myself, JManjorin, for the Education Technology program at Boise State University. And this is specifically for EdTech 651, which was Dr. Uribe Flores' course. So let's talk a little bit about purpose and goal. So the purpose of this study is to examine digital business simulation games and the levels of engagement and knowledge gain for new hires measured against the levels of engagement and knowledge gain of experienced managers to determine if the digital business simulation game has different levels of impact and knowledge gain based upon the level of experience or age of the learner. So, the components of the study are clearly the research questions, and these will lead to targeting the right data to collect, selecting the correct methods of collection, and then the cohorts or the participants to be tested, and then how we analyze the data collected in order to test the hypothesis. So, the value of the study or why this is necessary is really evidenced in the realization that there's not a lot of detailed research on the impact and knowledge gain of digital business simulation gains specific to the corporate environment. And I'm actually even more focused on financial services to be specific. The foundational research for this study is actually presented by a group led by Ursula Law, Eifenthaler, G, and Miller, who in 2014, they had a very deep investigation into the interrelationships between motivation, engagement, and complex problem solving in game-based learning. So that really was the springboard for, or the motivation behind this study, and really what I'm focusing on throughout my time with Boise State. And this is connected to general motivation and engagement associated with simulation and games, and then the impact of knowledge gain and transfer to the business simulation. So, research questions. Given the perceived positive impacts that the literature professes regarding the use of DBSGs, the purpose of the study, therefore, is to build upon the body of evidence supporting this effectiveness, specifically through the lens of the simulations for corporate learning, and then moving into our purpose, which is studying quantitative data. So I'll be using quantitative data to measure knowledge gain and efficacy of the content based off the theory of engagement and motivation, which we had talked about previously. So the purpose of collecting quantitative data will be from pre-testing and then post-testing, as well as some metadata from the server for engagement related purposes like duration of specific activities and then overall seat time or duration within the actual digital business simulation game. So specifically for this study and for this presentation, we'll be looking at what is the difference in knowledge gain pre and post test exams from a standpoint between the two cohorts. So really this is the composite mean. So what is the knowledge gain between our new hires and what is the knowledge gain between our experienced managers, and is there a significant difference between that? And then if we move forward within the actual research proposal, was there a difference in engagement levels between the two cohorts? This will actually be explained more in the final paper and examined in further data collection events. But for the purposes of length of this specific presentation, we're only going to be focusing on the knowledge gain and the tests found within that. So quantitative collection methods clearly will be used to compare the two cohorts for testing, and later on they will be used as well for duration, but for now we're only focusing on the knowledge gain. So we'll be using the pre-test and the post-test and the quantitative assessment found therein. We'll also be using Likert style surveys in the future, which will measure familiarity with the modality, familiarity with the content, as well as engagement levels. So we'll have questions that are generated that will talk specifically about their engagement with specific aspects of the digital business simulation game and measure that as well. So we can measure the scores on the Likert style surveys across both cohorts. So moving forward, let's talk a little bit about our participants. So the first group comprised of individuals from the new hire level within the organization, which is generally 22-year-old participants. Get them pretty much right out of college, sometimes after 1 year of grad school. and it's basically going to be composed of the exact demographical percentages that make up the firm. Then the second group, or the second cohort, would be comprised of individuals that are from our experienced management group, and these are generally 29 or 30 years of age. They've had some experience with the firm, they've been on engagements, things like that. The presumed effect would be that generational preferences and levels of experience in the firm would impact levels and engagement and knowledge gain between both groups. So the null hypothesis is that there's no change in knowledge gain, or minimal change, nothing significantly of record for engagement and scores. However, I want to emphasize that the experience means experience with the firm, not experience with the topics. The topics would be new for both groups. It would skew the statistical analysis if the experienced managers already had experience within the topics in the digital business simulation game, because clearly they'd have less to learn and there would be less knowledge gained. So that would be problematic for the study. So we're talking about topics and content that they would have about the same baseline of knowledge with the new hires as well. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the approach and analysis. So the types of tests and why. So a scored online pre-test will be administered. We're talking multiple choice questions directly related to the topics and the learning objectives that will be encountered in the simulation. Basically establish a baseline of knowledge. And then after the learning event, we'll have a post-test will be administered in order to measure the level of knowledge gain on the event. So basically it's taking the composite means of both groups and comparing which had the largest increase. So actual data collection is really a matter of access. The data explained already exists on our simulation servers, and basically we can cut and chop that up however we need to. We also talked about the Likert style surveys that will be used to collect self-reported experiential engagement scores from the participants. The exam data is collected via what we have called Question Mark, which is an exam tool that is widely used for training evaluations. And additionally, we use metrics that matter for our survey collection tool. This allows us to export data to Excel, produce a variety of visualizations and extrapolations from the scoring in Question Mark, as well as the details collected in MTM. Additionally, the engagement data will be pulled from the actual server. As our participants go through, we can measure in a variety of ways duration in various segments of the simulation, the overall duration, how fast people are moving through things, and actually we can report that in real time. It's kind of nice. But the test data will be then imported into SPSS, and it will be analyzed via a paired sample t-test for both cohorts. So the two groups will be comparing pre and post test scores at the end of this. As we move forward, we have our data set. So as you can see, the data set is showing our new hire group with pre-test and post-test, and our experienced group with their pre-test and post-test scores. For this, we have a small sample of 31 participants within each cohort, so a total of 62, and the demographic data would be consistent across both of those, so we would have that. And now here's the results from our paired samples t-test. We can see pair 1 is our pre-test, post-test. This is actually for the new hires. And then pair 2 is actually our experience, pre-test experience, post-test experience with that. And you can see the mean is actually pretty significantly different. The change between our pre-test and post-test in our new hires was significant. There's a 23.9 point difference, almost 24 point difference in their scoring, whereas the experienced group saw roughly 10.6 scoring point differential. And then you can see the significance, the two-tailed is 0. So we know this is statistically significant, therefore proving out our choice to reject the null hypothesis and move this, the analysis forward. I would like to pull in more stats from the group. I'd like to expand the baseline of knowledge a little more. I'd like to actually compare it across different demographics within there. That's probably a little aggressive for what we want to do here, but that would be my next steps with this data, and then add the engagement aspect. So then we can start correlating between engagement and scoring. So thank you very much for listening through my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it.